up, guys? I had gotten a question from Bernal. I hope I'm saying that right, or that username right. He asked me what was my thought process about being an owner-operator in the frac sand side versus the crude oil side. Well, a couple of years ago, that was my intention, to be an owner-operator on the crude oil side, because at the time I was hauling crude oil, but I was doing it under a company name, as a company driver. I'm sorry. And over the 3.5 years that I was hauling crude oil, I got tired of smelling that H2S, even though it was under 10 parts per million. I got tired of it, and it was an easy job. You know, you climbed up you find your lease. You know, confirm the lease number, the tank number. You climb up the staircase with your toolkit. You know, which included gauge line, your wood back, your thief, your hydrometers, low gravity and high gravity hydrometers, and pen and paper, because you needed to write down the numbers, your measurements, and you got your samples, your sample tubes. You needed a sample from with the company that I was. You needed a sample that was 8 inches from the bottom, and at least a foot to a foot and a half underneath the top of the actual level of oil. You'd get down, and each tube would have 100 milliliters of oil, the one from the bottom, the one from the top, and you would have Verisol, also known as mineral spirits, heated up at the time. Hopefully you started the heater before you went up, got the measurements. By the time you got down, it would already be it would be pretty hot, and you would put 100 milliliters of that solution on top of the oil for both. So you'd have 100 of oil, 100 of Verisol, 100 of oil, 100 of Verisol. So one's your top sample, one's your bottom sample, and you would put that in a centrifuge, which was basically, it was a spinner. You would hold both samples and spin it, and you'd spin it for about 3 minutes. But you had to make sure that it was actually, was it 140 degrees before you started spinning it. So you'd also have a thermometer to make sure that they were at temp to go ahead and spin it. So you spin it for 3 minutes. At that time, I'd be hooking up the hose to the line, making sure everything else was ready. Get the PTO going, but not engaged. The actual lever going up or down to start the loading. And by then, 3 minutes would pass. You check it, the sample was good, then you were good to go. So I did that for 3.5 years, and I was pretty comfortable with it. And when I was considering becoming an owner-operator, there was more frac sand opportunities, more ads, more companies that were needing owner-operators. And on the crude oil side, it hadn't got to that point. It was just a few companies here and there. And I started, looking at videos on YouTube, like Fuku Money. That's a FUKU Money, his channel. At the time, he was doing pneumatic trailers, hauling frac sand. And I was also watching Jason Andrew Jackson. He had, at that time, I think he had just left Knight and started doing the sandboxes. So I watched a couple of their videos, and that kind of also helped me out, because I was thinking about let me do frac sand, something different, something new. You know, as a truck driver, you know, you might want to have some experience hauling different things, because at one point I was thinking about being flatbed before just hopping into frac sand. But you know, I saw all the opportunities that were available at the time, and also thought that there would be more consistent work. So like, my thought process was, okay, if they need this, if there's this many ads needing this many drivers, then there's got to be a lot of work available, and they don't have enough drivers. So I went ahead that route, being that I was going to be a new owner-operator. I wouldn't have to get my own authority, because I would be running under their authority, because I'd be leasing on, and you know, they offered, you know, good rates for insurance versus me doing it on my own and me having my own authority. It would be a lot more paperwork, a lot more headache. So I thought it would be easier doing it that way. So yeah, crude oil at the time, I was like, well, let me take a break. Let me do something else that's involved in the oil and gas industry, and still has that potential for money. I'm really not sure of the rates on the crude oil side. I'm sure it's pretty similar, but also with crude oil, when you pull up, it's not always a guarantee that the oil is good enough to load, because it's your responsibility. You have to make sure that that oil is good, and if you're off, you took a bad sample, or it shook out good at first, but it was like, turns out there was actually more water than you thought there was, because maybe it might have been right at the border, and you're like, oh, it looks good enough to load, so let me go ahead and take it. And then when you get there to the facility, they have equipment that will monitor the oil as it's being loaded, and as soon as it senses that the BS&W, which is I believe the basic sediment and water level, if it hits a certain number, it'll shut off the lack, and the big red light will come up on the machine, and it'll say bad oil right next to it, and you're gonna have to explain why you decided to pick up that load if their instruments are saying that it is bad. It's too much water or too much mud, dirt that's in it. So that, the possibility. With sand, it's pretty much you pick it up, you go. It's guaranteed pretty much to be offloaded unless the well goes down, you know, things like that out of your control. But at least you'll get paid detention for it after so many hours. Also, sometimes if you know it's bad, you know, it's got a foot of water, your bottom sample is nothing but water, and you know, obviously company policy would be to contact your dispatch saying, hey, I'm refusing this load because of this. They might say, well, hang on, let me call the pumper for that lease, and they'll call you back and say, hey, he said he's right around the corner, just hang tight. I don't believe you get paid detention for sitting at the lease. I don't believe so. And I mean, the pumper probably told him, yeah, I'll be there in about 10 minutes, but he's really at Whataburger having lunch, and he shows up an hour and a half later saying, hey, what's going on? Is that, you know, hey, there's a foot of water. Okay, let me pump the water out. So he'll turn on his equipment, and that might take 30 minutes or more. And then he'll say, okay, I think that might be enough. You gotta go up, get another sample, shake that out. If it's still not good, of course, he's got to pump more water or sediment out from the bottom of the tank till it's a good amount. And on top of that, you got to make sure that whatever's left is enough for a complete load. If not, then guess what? You might have to work another tank that's maybe right next to it, or at another lease just down the road that's maybe a mile or two close by. And guess what? You got to work that oil too, and you'll get compensated, I'm sure, for that, because it'll be considered a split load. But there's a lot more potential for, you know, setbacks there that I've experienced as a company driver hauling crude oil. So that pretty much kind of narrowed it down to let me do frac sand. Let me experience that. Let me see how that is, because I'm hearing good things out in the oil field, that it's good, it's picking up. So far, I mean, it started slow, but like this week, it's picked up tremendously. I've pretty much been dedicated to one well, and they're getting ready to finish up. I'm over here in Burton. I just pulled out of the lease and pulled over to heat me up some lunch. And I asked the sand coordinator himself, saying, hey, are y'all going to shut down? Because they were saying we're going to shut down by Christmas Eve, hopefully. It's like, y'all shutting it down today or tomorrow? I said, no, we need 7 more 100 mesh trucks. They asked me, you coming back? I'm like, man, I wish, but I don't have enough hours. And before that, when I had gotten to the staging area, the sand coordinator there, that's a representative from our company, you know, he was happy to see me. He said, hey man, we need 100 mesh. You can go ahead and shoot back there to the well. They're ready for you. And asked, hey, are you coming back? I was like, no man, I'm not. I'm supposed to be off tomorrow. Oh man, so we need more 100 mesh. I'm like, okay. He was the first guy to tell me that. And now the sand coordinator for the company, the client, is saying that. Now I'm thinking, okay, am I going to gain hours? Because I didn't know how many hours I was going to gain today, because as of yesterday, or last night, I had 3 hours and 40 minutes left. So when I checked that 2 o'clock this morning, when I got the call, I saw that I gained some hours. I had like 10 hours and some change, and I've pretty much eaten that up. I'm going to have to use personal convenience to get home. And I knew that if I called dispatch, which I have to do before I leave the well, to let them know, hey, I'm done, I'm unloaded. Usually they're asking, well, hey, what are you doing? Are you going to go this way? You know, do you have hours for a load today? And I told them no. And I said, well, I might gain hours. Of course, I got the okay from the wife. I had to ask her. I kind of told her the whole story. She kind of figured, I was like, okay, so is this a roundabout way of you asking me if you can work tomorrow morning? I'm like, yeah. And she said, okay, as long as you get out early. I was like, all right. So I told them I'd be ready at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. And if I wake up earlier than that, then I'll give them a call and say, hey, I'm ready now. I was able to verify that I gained hours enough to do at least one load. I'll do that. So I'm trying to get that money running while it's hot, because out here you don't know what could go down, what could be done. Guess what? The following day they're not going to have the well running again. That crew's got to break down this location, transport the equipment to the next location, and then set up the equipment at that location before they can actually start making orders for trucks to come in with sand to do the pre-fill. So yeah, Bernal, I hope that Bernal, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I don't know if that's your actual name or a username, but I hope that kind of answers your question about the reason why I went with frac sand versus continuing on with crude oil as an owner-operator, and also kind of giving an update of what's going on today.